Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our interview series with eminent professors of accounting and finance in the UK. I'm Arman Ashraghi, Professor of Finance and Chair of CPAF, which is the professorial committee of the British Accounting and Finance Association. I'm delighted to be joined by Professor Lisa Jack of the University of Portsmouth, a highly distinguished scholar whose work has shaped many areas of accounting. Professor Jack is a former president of the BAFA, the British Accounting and Finance Association. She's a fellow of the Academy of Social Sciences, and among her many accolades, she's the BAFA Distinguished Academic Award, a winner for which she was recognized earlier this year. Lisa is also a co-editor-in-chief of the British Accounting Review, which is a leading and impactful journal in the field of accounting. Lisa, it's a real pleasure to have you with us. May I ask you to briefly introduce yourself and or your academic journey in your own words?
Okay, thank you very much, Armin. Um, and thank you very much for inviting me.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. I think, like many academics of my age in accounting, I didn't come straight into academic life. I'm now Professor of Accounting at the University of Portsmouth, but I've had quite a varied journey to get here. So I didn't study accounting at university. I actually studied classical Greek and mathematics. And when I got a job as a trainee with Ernst and Winnie, it was because they said, well, if you can do that, you must be good at problem solving. So from university, I went and did training contracts, but on a slightly unconventional route. It was ACCA. I started with an electricity board and then moved to the local branch of Ernst and Winnie. Um, so I was doing external audit. I then moved to do internal audit um, in public sector mainly. And it was while I was doing an audit role in a consortium auditing universities, I decided I actually wanted to be teaching rather than auditing.
Hmm.
Like many people, I was a qualified accountant by this point,
I see.
but I also had children. So, like many women in particular, I started down a teaching route. So I taught professional accounting courses, ACCA, SIPFA, AAT for some years, and ended up at an agricultural college. And people who know my work will suddenly
Yes.
recognize this bit of the conversation. So I was teaching conventional accounting in an agricultural college because they did other things as well. And as part of that, they said, would I do a master's? And I looked at doing a master's and realized all I had to do, because I would be exempt from all the taught courses, was to do the dissertation. So I decided if I'm going to do that, I'll do an MPhil. Got taken on by University of Essex and Will Seal. Essex was actually validating the degrees at the college I was at. And from there, I worked my way up through what's now Anglia Ruskin and then got the post at Essex when I qualified with my PhD, which was into agricultural accounting.
I see. I see.
Yeah. Of course, you have a great advantage, don't you, when you go into a lecturing and research post if you've already done lecturing and
Indeed.
teaching
Yes.
and you've
Yes.
already had an experience of doing a job. Yeah. So the admin and teaching side was no problem. And I was lucky that the research took off fairly quickly. And in 2009, we're talking now, I'm middle-aged by this point, a
You're
middle-aged
not
woman
saying
being a researcher.
that. Okay.
Um, I got the post at I was asked if I'd apply for the post at University of Portsmouth, which I then got.
Hmm.
And that's actually been quite instrumental because they've been very supportive in my developing the career that I've had since and the opportunities with BAFA and with the journal.
Hmm.
I mean, you can take a very circular route around to where you end up. But I
Yes.
think it's not uncommon, even now, for people to be coming in and doing their PhDs in middle age
Hmm.
and having a career behind them. And I think you know, it brings another angle to a university when you've got that experience. Yeah.
Very
I thought
true.
you were going to ask me something else, so I'll not keep talking just at the minute.
And no, 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 thank you. I was enjoying listening. So you clearly have had a varied and obviously very impactful academic journey so far, and you will be continuing to contribute to the profession, hopefully many years to come. What are your how would you uh, um, uh, communicate your best advice to early stage academics who are just entering the profession and who want to go the long way, who want to have an impactful academic career like yourself going forward? What are your pearls of wisdom?
I think it's a lot harder now to be an early career researcher. There's a lot more pressures. Um, but there are some key things. I mean, I've had a lot of experience supervising PhD students and people going into their first role. I think the danger is you get very hung up, if I can put it
Hmm.
that way, about the quantity of publications that you need.
That's true.
And you can have a somewhat scattergun approach. But it's still what gets you to the higher levels is people being able to recognize who you are and what you do, your speciality. So, whilst you may need a few papers just to build up a portfolio, I think the best advice is to find your speciality, what really interests you, and to develop it. Now, in some ways, I was almost lucky when I went to the agricultural college because there's only two or three of us who look at this area of food systems from an accounting point of view. There wasn't a vast literature, but there is a vast interdisciplinary literature.
Hmm.
And because I'm just very interested in this area, it's a very peculiar area for accounting. It sort of helped me develop a speciality and something I'm known for, as well as the theory side, which I can talk about separately. So I think my first view is that you have to have something that you profess if you're going to be a professor. That's how our vice
Absolutely.
chancellor puts it.
Hmm.
So what do you want to be known for? And are you following it just to get the quantity of papers, or are you following it because this is something we need to know? This is something that really can have an impact both on the discipline and on the real world. And I think, really you need to avoid that trap of just doing papers, quantity of papers to be promoted. Um, Now it might be tricky, but in the end, where do you want to be? What do you want to be remembered for? I think the other is to remember that you're a lifelong learner, to use that phrase.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've recently been doing a number of workshops in the university and outside of the university on writing and writing papers. And it makes me realize how much I've learnt about being a writer. When I was at the University of Essex, I made friends with somebody who taught creative writing at the University of Essex and was a professional published poet.
Oh,
And this was actually one of my luckiest things that happened because I was getting into that hung up state of saying, I ought to be writing, I ought to be writing, you know. And I learned that actually writing steadily and separating out the writing from the editing, they're two different jobs. And that professional writers also struggle, you know, that it doesn't just flow from the brain onto the page.
very true.
It's something it's a craft.
Hmm.
And so I think learning good writing, learning to write more plainly, more precisely, more scholarly, in a more scholarly way, and to remember that you're communicating to people. I've become a lot better at writing introductions and conclusions. I've become a lot clearer and more precise in my writing. Um, I don't think I'm a natural writer, or not, I'm not a natural literary writer. I would like to be, but I'm not. But you can learn the craft of writing, and you can treat it professionally. And so my other thing would be do little and often.
Yes.
Not everybody has to binge write. Some people enjoy that, but in my experience, the rest of us have to do a little and often. And if you do one writing task every day, if you can't manage to write a paragraph or a few hundred words, then sort out some references or find a paper or edit something. Just do a writing task every day. And that's what I try and do. And if you can only do 15 minutes on one day, that's good. You've done 15 minutes more. If you can manage to spend the whole day, personally, I can't do the whole day writing, but that's just me.
Yes,
Haven't stopped me
it
getting
takes a
coffee.
toll. You're absolutely right.
So I think it's those three things. Find your speciality, remember
Hmm.
that writing is a craft and that you're a lifelong learner, and do a little and often. And
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is really valuable advice. So find your passion, stick with it. Don't be obsessed with the quantity of papers and all these metrics which are floating around, which is
mm,
easier said than done in a world
mm,
where sometimes, unfortunately, incentives are based on these metrics.
mm,
um, and write beautifully, write thoughtfully. And I personally have always enjoyed both listening to you talk about your research, but also reading your papers. And I think you've really crafted that. So um, great to hear that. Now, Lisa, let's change our focus from early
mm,
career academics to professors, full professors. So
mm.
CPAF, obviously, as you know, and you have contributed to it, and you have, I believe, chaired it before, is
No, it's just a committee member.
just a committee member. Okay. Thank you for correcting me. So, as we know, it's the community of full professors of accounting and finance. So my natural question to you is, what does it take to be a full professor in today's academic environment? What does it mean to be a full professor? Um, some of our listeners are perhaps senior lecturers and readers who are aspiring to become full professors. What advice do you have for them?
It's very good because again, the world is more getting more difficult for those posts. There's
Very
fewer
true.
of them around. And I do some coaching in the university of people who are on that associate professor to professor route as well, and senior lecturer to associate professor. I think there are a lot of demands now for what makes a professor, and you have to be careful that you don't get pulled into doing too much. You can be asked to do, well, we need citizenship and evidence that you've got an external reputation and that you're doing the admin and the forward facing work as well, and you're bringing in money and you're writing four-star papers because, and you're communicating and maybe have impact. And it is all very time consuming and you have to get a balance. And at some point, you have to decide what you're going to say no to.
Yeah.
Something that took me some time to learn, I have to say. So, yes, you do need to contribute, but I think the key things are put in the work to do the networking so that you have partners outside of in the university and outside of the university and internationally. Because what you're looking for is that international people know you internationally for what you do.
Hmm.
Um, the you do get involved with fundraising, and that's really difficult in accounting and finance. I mean, I could paper my notice board with letters that say, "You've written an excellent project, but we've given the money to somebody else."
Very true.
If you get into that side. So, and the trouble with a lot of what we do is that you don't actually need a lot of money. But I think there is a change here in that you can start looking for, well, can we bring in postdoctoral fellows? on funding and things like that and create, which is slightly unusual in our discipline, but might be a way we need to go. So I think you need to show that you've sought some funding that's commensurate with the discipline.
Yes.
And I think you also need to show that you're going to have a trajectory it's not a reward for what you've done. The professorship is also about what you're going to do.
Hmm.
So that your work has got you this far, and this is how much further it's going to take you and a network of people in the future. Now, that's quite hard to define. You then got to think about what that means in your context.
Right.
Um, However, I do appreciate it's difficult because a lot of promotion processes now require you to hit certain metrics,
Very true. Yeah.
and they seem to be different for every university. But I think those core things still remain. It goes back to what I was saying about early career. Make sure you're known for something,
Hmm.
your speciality, that you have contributed something, and that maybe you have impact fundraising, and that you have contributed either to the community in your university or even better externally in some way.
Hmm.
So it's a case of looking for those roles, isn't it? It's looking for the opportunities as they
Yes.
come. And I would say that's basically why I'm where I am, is because I took opportunities as they came up.
Hmm.
Um, it's not very sort of packaged advice, but I think that's what makes a full professor. It's somebody who looks outward, is still on a trajectory, doesn't see the full professor as being the top of their career. It's just another step onto because it does enable you to do quite a lot once you get the professorship. You get more invitations, you get more opportunities. Um, and
Indeed.
that's
I
what I
mean, so
value about it. That's why I value the fact that I was able to have a. It took me some years to get my mind around the fact I was a professor and a full professor. But there is no doubt it gave me more opportunities than I had before. Um,
Yes, yes.
that I think is worth striving for.
You're quite right. So, in other words, it's a milestone. It's an important milestone, but it's not a final destination. So the journey goes on, becomes more diverse, and don't shy away from external opportunities, as you say, to craft your identity academically and
Yes,
project it outward. So I think that's part of what you're saying, which makes perfect sense. And I think you have been a brilliant example of that yourself with your work with the industry, with the public sector, with the third sector. So now let's focus a little bit on research itself and the
okay.
arts and craft of writing good papers, which are then publishable in high quality outlets. So you talked about the importance of writing well. What
Mm,
are the other elements that go into crafting a high quality paper in your view, and also with your editor's hat on?
yeah. Well, this is very important now because the British Accounting Review, like the journals you're involved with, and of course you're involved with the British Accounting Review as an associate editor now. It's just the sheer quantity of papers
Mm,
coming through. So, whereas in the past you might have sort of said, oh, well, maybe we can work with this paper and find the contribution. It's almost now that you have to be able to say upfront why this is a contribution. And so you have to become very good at evaluating what that
yes,
contribution is. I did actually learn a lot from being on the Research Excellence Framework panel in the UK
I see.
because their actual definition of what makes an excellent paper is actually quite good. It's one where, first of all, let's start with the slightly easier one to understand. It's about the rigor
Hmm.
of that paper. Basically, if you're doing quantitative work, have you tested your data all the way through? Have you thought of the alternative explanations, for example? But it also comes down to how original are your hypotheses if it's quantitative work. Is it just patchworking together other people's previous hypotheses and fitting them to a new situation? Or are you, in fact, being ambitious and starting from first principles
Yeah.
almost, or part the way on first principles? With qualitative work, again, it's about the rigor of, you know, I don't like the word validation, but how robust is the evidence that you're giving? How robust is your
Hmm.
interpretation? So I think really top papers in either qualitative or quantitative or mixed methods actually have really worked those methods. And now you actually have to do quite a lot of that work before you submit to those journals. You can't
Hmm.
rely on 3 or 4 or 5 rounds of review because there just isn't the capacity at the moment. So we're looking for papers that actually have already demonstrate some rigor. You're also looking for the originality of the question and identification of the problem. So what problem are you looking at? It's not just a gap in the literature or that it hasn't been done in this context or with this variable. It's really, what's the problem here? Is it a problem for academics? Is it a problem for external actors, for the government? Why do we need to look at this problem? Or another way of looking at it is, are you looking at it in a very intuitive way? Or are you turning it slightly on its head and using lateral thinking or being counterintuitive?
I see.
And I can give you an example from a paper I have in AOS,
Oh.
where in fact the seminal paper from 1996 on this particular area of how supermarkets interact with accounting, you can read it, basically said this is what's happening and this is what is going to happen in the future. But the paper we published in 2018 said that didn't happen. Our
Hmm.
data shows that didn't happen. You're still quoting 1996, but it didn't happen. What
Hence
happened
the
was intuitive
surprise
thinking,
factor,
what
right?
happened was
Yeah. I
counterintuitive.
see. I see.
And what's happening now is actually quite of concern because it's squeezing the prices for the people who not only are producing the goods but work in the system. So it's about sort of what is the real problem
Hmm.
into that? What's the question? And then I think it's about evaluating your contribution because have you simply added to knowledge? And that I said simply, but that's actually it can be quite a massive thing. 1 star does not mean bad.
Yeah.
It just means the contribution is constrained or limited. You know, if it was bad, it wouldn't even be published, you know. So whether you put 1 star on ref or on a journal ranking, it's not a bad paper, it's just limited.
Hmm.
Whereas in the 4 star journals, there's sort of that contribution is either you're changing people's minds about a particular idea, you're changing a method, you're adding something substantial to our knowledge. And it's very difficult to judge whether you've done that or not. I mean, in that paper I mentioned, the one on supermarkets, it was clear that we were saying something that hadn't been said before. But for most work, you're coming up with something marginal. Excuse me. And actually, you should be congratulated. If you do a good professional paper, that's excellent, but it might not be what a 4 star journal is looking for. You
Hmm.
might need it to be able to build up to that. So I think one of the skills that you develop as you go along is judging, is this my big contribution or is this a step? And if it's a step, then I'm going to make it as rigorous as possible because it will get into a good journal on rigor and it will be citable if you want to put it that way. Because the other side is it
Hmm.
significant to the discipline? And it's basically, I usually use the scale. It goes from, is it a must have reference through to is it just a nice to have reference?
I see.
So
That's a
it's
good way
about,
of
are
putting
you
it. Yeah.
making, is your work a point of reference?
Hmm.
And I've been
Hmm.
fortunate because I used a theory that I introduced. I met the Rob Stones, who developed strong structuration theory, was a colleague at Essex, and I was able to adapt that work into accounting finance. It turned
Hmm.
out, as he put it, that because we're more concerned with detail and precision than many sociologists are, it actually fitted quite well. And that sort of led to people developing that side as well as the food systems side that I've developed. In some ways, it wasn't difficult for me to be significant because if you now use strong structuration theory or you quote food systems, without being arrogant, you have to cite me.
No, no, you've earned it clearly.
You have to cite me. That's not
Yeah,
my
yeah,
problem
yeah.
comes if I have to cite myself. Because I was the one that wrote the foundation paper.
Indeed, indeed.
And I say that, but it's because those areas. But you can still have that in areas that are more, if you like, crowded.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you doing something that other people will must include as a point of reference in
Hmm.
future? Are you adding to that discussion that's moving on? Because you never bring an end. So I always get so the fun thing, never claim that you've closed the gap when you've written a paper.
You're
There's always
absolutely
something
right.
for the next step. Every theory always has another step.
Indeed, indeed. And take the
I'm
small
sorry, I've
wins.
explained that at some length, but I think it's
It's an important, I think it's an important question, and you've really tackled it well. So take the small wins, build on them, and as you say, those ratings do not necessarily mean the quality of your work is proportionate. It's the extent of the contribution. So
extent
again,
of the contribution. Yeah,
exactly. So
absolutely.
I couldn't agree more with your framing of this. In the interest of time, Lisa,
Hmm.
I'm going to turn to my final question,
Okay.
which is looking ahead. Um, as an eminent scholar in the field, are there trends or movements that you see in academic accounting, perhaps qualitative accounting, that excite you or you take notice of and you would like to say a few words about?
It's a very good question. In some ways, some qualitative work has plateaued.
Hmm.
It's very case-based, which is excellent. Um, there's a range of theories being used, but they're being used in similar ways. I think the qualitative work I get excited about is where it's again tackling a real world problem. Not just an academic problem, but it's actually got a far reaching thing. Then we're using the theory to sort of pull about why it's happening now and what could happen in the future. So I think it's that work that really tackles problems of, say, inequality,
Hmm.
um, that I find very interesting. And I think it is these, if you like, you could use the SDGs as a hook,
Yeah,
but I'm interested in work that's looking at the what if we do something differently. I think it's just coming through. We're very good at analysing the problems in accounting and what the problems are and who's responsible for them. We're not so good as taking that next pragmatic step of saying, well, what could we do differently?
hmm,
And Bob Scapins has spoken about this, and it's an area that's just starting to get some traction, I think. Maybe we've got to use our imaginations a bit more.
absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you with us. Thank you for sharing such thoughtful, insightful reflections on the field, on what it means to be an early career academic or a full professor of accounting. I know Many researchers, regardless of their career stage, will find your advice invaluable. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast. I wish you continued success with your research, with your leadership, with your other contributions to the field, and your important editorial role at Bar. And to our listeners, thank you very much for joining us again. We look forward to welcoming you back for another episode in the series. Thank you.
Thank you. And I look forward to hearing the other episodes as they come out. Thank you for doing this initiative.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Bye bye.
Brilliant. I'm going to stop this.